Hi, Sun Devil fans. Hope Rubino here with DevilsDigest.com. And as we're previewing the SRS distribution Las Vegas Bowl, December 30th at Allegiant Stadium, ASU facing Wisconsin, I wanted to invite my colleague, Badger Blitz senior writer, Jake Kocorowski, to give us a preview of the Sun Devils' opponent in this postseason contest. Jake, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on, Hode, man. I know you and I are doing this back to back for going behind the curtain. We're doing a little bit of fun. You were just on our show, which will be uploaded to YouTube in just probably about 10, 15 minutes. And looking forward to seeing this. And just thanks for having me on and talking about, two teams with identical records and going up and trying to claim a title in Vegas in a beautifully new stadium.
Yeah. And you kind of stole my thunder there, Jake, on my first question as far as the identical records. I know I came on your broadcast and I talked to you about how the 8-4, 6-3 conference mark is perceived by Sun Devil fans, but now the mirror image record for Wisconsin. And I know it's been kind of a Jekyll and Hyde over there, losing 2 out of the first 3 games for the Badgers, then going on a 7-game winning streak, then losing the regular season finale, to Minnesota. Is it just a matter of just the level of competition and Wisconsin beating who they're supposed to beat, and that was part of the winning streak, but maybe against formidable competition, just showing that they weren't up to the task? Or do you think there's some other elements that really caused this hot and cold 2021 season for the Badgers?
Yeah, you talked about on our cast, Toad, about you being disappointed in the record for Arizona State. There are a lot of high aspirations for this team, from outside the program with who they had returning, the offense coming back from a COVID year where they were 4-3 overall. They had some key pieces returning on both sides of the ball, a maturing Graham Mertz, people thought, they started off 1-3, which is not what you wanted. They lost a tight one to Penn State where the defense kept them in it for the most part until in the second half. Penn State made some big plays through the air with Jahan Dotson. And the offense had a couple of tries to, they did not capitalize in the red zone. So, that's a game I think they should have won, going up against, they had back-to-back losses against Notre Dame and Michigan. One in Soldier Field, one on Barry Alvarez Day in Michigan. They got against Michigan. They got blown out by the Wolverines essentially. So this is it was a team that was, I wrote about it at that time where they were wildly inconsistent in terms of just who they were as offense. That they're against Notre Dame and Michigan, the run game was shut down and the passing game could not lift them up. The defense has always been a strength throughout the entire year, but they also give up some big plays through the air in every loss for that matter. And even in the win against Nebraska, where you had Adrian Martinez, I think throw for, I think it was 351 yards. So this is and then they come off and they have a 7-game win streak where they find their identity on offense with the run game once again, and then some complementary football with the passing game in 3 of those contests. Then kind of a stinker in Minnesota where you thought they're on the 7-game winning streak. They're going to get back to Indianapolis. They control their own path and Minnesota shuts down the run. And then they found some things against the Wisconsin defense that some plays that, it wasn't a high scoring game whatsoever, but, they held Wisconsin without a touchdown, and they also made enough plays offensively to come away with a victory. So it is for Wisconsin playing up down to their competition. It's hard to say where I think they could have beaten a Penn State. They were leading Notre Dame, who was number 5 in the college football playing rankings. They're 13-10. It was 13-10 in the fourth quarter before they give up a 96-yard kickoff return to Chris Tyree. And then they have a drive right after that and they miss a 50-yard field goal. And the wheels kind of just fell off from there. When in turnovers and, their Graham Mertz was trying to force the ball for certain plays. Against Michigan, it was a tight game until right after half and Mertz got injured and then the wheels fell off there. So they've been competitive in every game. It just, you see the wild inconsistencies in terms of the offense just not being able to generate things in those losses enough where there's some glimpses of a run game and then it stops in other contests. The passing game wasn't able to lift up either due to pass rush, pressure, Mertz not making the throws that he needs to, or miscommunication between him and receivers, like I think we saw against Minnesota. So there was just a flurry of I would say reasons why those 4 losses crept up on a season that I thought at the very least they could have gone 10-2 or 11-1. I know that I think at one point the ESPN FPI even had them at, winning every game at one point during the summer, which obviously this is why they play the game, and Wisconsin's 8-4.
Yeah. So when you talk about teams able to slow down the run of Wisconsin, a very formidable rush attack averaging over 215 yards. And I know sometimes Wisconsin was still able to win games like that, but was this a matter of, the no-brainer, just a team being more physical than Wisconsin, and that's how they stopped the run? Or did you maybe sense some kind of trends that perhaps are not all that obvious that help some of Wisconsin opponents, whether it's a win or a loss, actually able to halt a very talented ground attack for the Badgers?
Yeah, I think it was just the scheme of whoever ignored him did an amazing job, where if there's one thing out of those first 2 games that you saw out of Wisconsin, they ran the ball pretty well against Penn State. I think had about 180 yards rushing there. And then against Eastern Michigan, they had big runs. They had a run of 60 yards and a run of 82 yards against and again, it's a MAC program. So, and not to disparage Eastern Michigan, but they did not have the front that you would see out of a Power 5 program to withstand that. I just think, there was talent on those lines, and, credit to Minnesota for that matter too, in terms of plugging the run game and just scheming well against Wisconsin. And part of it's being more physical, obviously. And, there is talent, for Michigan, especially Michigan, Aiden Hutchinson, who was just a monster against the Badgers, that 4th game of the year, both in the run and the pass. But I think part of it's the physicality, and then, but also just Wisconsin not executing. Because I really feel like this team at times, they should have at least 2 more wins in my book, but I mean, that's why they play again. That's why they play the game. And you see teams scheming well against Wisconsin and plugging those holes, and then forcing Wisconsin to try to win by pass, where, against Iowa, Wisconsin actually opened up with the pass, and Graham Mertz was 9 of 10. And that helped. That was in the first half. He started off that way, and Wisconsin really, that helped their run game start grinding more, and had about 170 yards against the Hawkeyes there. So, it is, in my eyes, the team just did a really good job preparing, and what you're going to get with Wisconsin, with the bread and butter and the power run game, especially with this season where the passing game has it's times it's shown, but it hasn't necessarily done so consistently. And if you have a game plan for Wisconsin, it's try to stop that run first and foremost, and then see what the passing game can do. And we'll see what happens against, Arizona State coming up. But, I do like what I've seen out of Braylon Allen, and, that backfield too, for that matter, has been depleted with, Allen's now, he's feeling healthier and better this year, but they've lost Ches Malusi to a season-ending injury against Rutgers. Isaac Garendo was lost for the year after a game, the pregame, I think, against Illinois, with his own lower body injury. So, and then on top of that, they've had, Jalen Berger, a former 4-star kid, leave, was dismissed from the program like earlier this year. And then now he signed with Michigan State. So you've seen contributors fall off, and now you have this true freshman running back step up, and we'll see if any others get carries too. But so it'll be interesting to see how the run game responds this week.
Yeah. And I know it's maybe somewhat of a similarity of Wisconsin, just like ASU, having a depleted running back unit coming into this ball game. But unlike ASU, Wisconsin is going to have its top rusher of the year, Braylon Allen, who put up great numbers, over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns, averaging 100 yards a game. Really can't ask a whole lot more from a running back at any level when you produce those numbers. ASU fans obviously are not that familiar with Allen. So, Jake, what can you tell us about Allen and what makes him so special as a running back? Is it just your typical Big Ten bruising ball carrier, or are there some maybe other traits, other weapons in an arsenal that makes him so special?
Really, with him, it's really interesting because he's a true freshman. And to start it all off, Allen didn't really know where he was going to play, either offensively or defensively, until late May. I remember talking to him right after he told John McNamara, our editor, I'm coming in as a running back, where we were like, oh, because we thought that he'd be on the defense. For signing day 2021, UW listed him as a safety. And at 6'2", 238 pounds, I don't think he's going to be a safety. So we were like, oh, maybe linebacker. But Wisconsin, you'll see on, the 30th, they have, they're pretty well stacked at inside linebacker right now, where you have someone like Jack Sanborn, an All-American and Big Ten linebacker of the year, and Leo Schnell. So I don't think he's going to, and there's a few others in the two deep that have more experience in that linebacker group. But so he came into the running back room, and we're just trying to figure out, I think he would be able to contribute in special teams and whatnot. But again, he is a 6'2", 238 pound, 17-year-old. And that's another thing to know. You're going to hear this on the broadcast for Wisconsin, where you're going to hear Jake Ferguson's Barry Alvarez's grandson. You will hear Braylon Allen is 17 years old because he reclassified from the 2021 class. He was a high 4-star kid for the 2022 class, but then decided to come in early and reclassify to that. So, he doesn't turn 18, I think, till January, he told us. So next month. And another thing for a bingo note for folks to know, that you probably, if this was a basketball game, you'd hear that both Brad Davison and Jonathan Davis are both high school quarterbacks. So you kind of complete your Wisconsin telecast bingo card. You'll be hearing a lot more about that. Probably cheese, some beer, maybe Spotted Cow as a reference to the famous, very famous beer here in Wisconsin. So, but back to Braylon, he is a player that, really physically, that he was going to come in with his workout videos that he had even before coming into Wisconsin, just a physical freak in terms of being 17 years old. He looks the part when you interview him. He has, for a 17-year-old, great patience, great vision. And this is, he's just learned underneath first-year assistant Gary Brown, who coached with the Dallas Cowboys, mentored Ezekiel Elliott, Darren McFadden, others for the NFC East franchise organization. And so you're seeing him really just, Allen just he's progressed throughout the year, where he didn't get many carries against the first, 3 games. He got a few carries against Michigan in some mop up time situations. And we're all kind of like, oh, well, he got that over, these running backs. That's interesting. And then Illinois, that's when he had his, he ran for 100 yards and during that 7-game winning streak. So he's instrumental there in being a compliment to Ches Malusi before the injury to Malusi, but now he became the featured back after that. And so, you saw him rip off, it's over 170 yards against Northwestern, and then 228 yards, a career high against Nebraska, where he kind of looked Jonathan Taylor-esque, and not to make that much of a comparison in terms of what we saw with the final product of Taylor, but as a young back, a true freshman stepping up, making big plays, making big runs against Nebraska. He ran over them, the Huskers, for that game. But you do see, he is a punisher with that frame, with that strength. It's hard. You can't arm tackle him because it looks silly on replays. And then you also have, there is speed. I think that's one area where I think you could improve even further on that. And I think he will at Wisconsin, but he does have some speed on him too, though. He's not just like a fullback that's running and just going really slow. He's actually, he's running, he's sprinting, and he's pulling away at times too against, defenses. So there's a lot to like about him. His future is extremely bright at Wisconsin in my eyes. And it will be interesting to see how he grows from there. And, behind him, it's, Brady Shipper, who's more of a third down back. He's a walk-on. Wisconsin's got a storied walk-on tradition within its program, dating back to Barry Alvarez, starting, really, coming in back in 1990. But you also have Julius Davis, who, third-year back. I think he's starting to make some strides too. But Allen is that back where he's getting the majority of the carries, and he will be the name to watch in that backfield coming up on the 30th.
So moving to the passing game for the Badgers, and Graham Mertz really has very modest numbers, and I would say maybe even disappointing numbers, with averaging 151 yards passing, 10 interceptions, 9 touchdowns. Just from a philosophical aspect, Jake, just because the running game is so dominant, are the Wisconsin coaches and maybe the fans too just accept that the passing game is going to take such a major backseat, and you can, quote unquote, just live with numbers that are really not that impressive? Or when you look at the regular season and what the passing game accomplished, or maybe really didn't accomplish, there is still a sense of disappointment, and maybe you did ultimately expect more from Mertz and the passing game for Wisconsin.
I think this year you definitely expected more out of Wisconsin's passing game. I think the players did too. It's one thing where you had this season, And last year, you saw Graham Mertz set the world on fire against Illinois, season opener, nearly 250 yards, 2021 passing. He set the single game mark, I should say, for Wisconsin in terms of, was it completion percentage in a game? He also tied a mark for I think it was 17 straight completions. He had 5 touchdown passes, which ties the school record for a single game. Everyone's like, oh, because that was the game that he took over for Jack Cohn, who's now at Notre Dame. And, that's because Cohn hurt his foot. And so, you see that start on fire. Then you saw kind of the COVID cases creep up last year for Wisconsin, and they had to cancel the next 2 games. And then they came back against Michigan, and he wasn't necessarily the same after that. This year, during spring ball, he looked sharp. During fall camp, you saw the defense, really, and usually the defense is ahead of the offense those, first week or 2 of fall camp, just because of, the defense. It's the defense, and especially with Wisconsin's defense underneath Jim Leonard, it's huge, but they rose up there, but we all thought that there'd be more with not just Mertz's development, but you have people like Danny Davis and Kendrick Pryor, who they were injured for the most of last year, and they were not there. And Wisconsin had to rely on a true freshman, Chimere Dike, who I think is going to be a great player, especially next year as a number 1 wide receiver there, but also a walk-on and Jack Dunn. And so the passing game suffered in 2020. So everyone thought, hey, you have those 2 coming back for another year. You have Jake Ferguson coming back for 1 more season, Wisconsin's tight end, who, first team all Big Ten selection, and, a future NFLer in my eyes. So we all thought that there would be a more of a balance, especially there was an unknown quality with this rushing attack where, it's always been historically good outside of a few seasons here and there. Last year was one of those exceptions, along with 2015 when Paul Chryst first got back in the program. They were trying to retool things back that season, but you thought that there'd be more complementary, more balance to it. And you didn't see that throughout the season. I referenced the Rutgers, Northwestern, Nebraska, where there was more complementary football. That was supposed to be the potential of the team. And you saw that in 2019 when Jack Cohn was quarterback. You have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield where it's going to be a rushing attack. That's going to be, you have to stop first. But Jack Cohn did wonders, with Quintez Cephas, who's now in the NFL with the Detroit Lions. You saw what he did with Ferguson, others, AJ Taylor, Davis and Pryor that I mentioned previously. So, and they, Wisconsin still, gained more yards rushing, but they had more that complementary passing game where they could take deep shots to keep teams honest. And again, you saw in maybe 3 games in that first half of that Iowa game where Mertz went 9 of 10 passing to start off the contest. That's where the complementary football is like, oh, this could be the potential. It died down later that game, but Wisconsin still beat, I think it was a top 10 team at that time in Iowa because of that, because the passing game helped the running game, because we all thought, well, it's going to be a game for both teams again in the trenches, like you mentioned, going run game versus run game, and whoever wins out is going to win, going to take the win there. But I think there's still tons of potential. And I think Mertz still, has the qualities to be a standout top 5, top Power 5 quarterback. He can make every throw you want. He, he's got great leadership qualities. You can tell that with those around him. It's just a matter of, I think reading progressions, pass rush. I mean, you got to keep your quarterbacks upright and pressure free. You saw that during the 7-game winning streak where he was barely touched. I think it was there was like 4 or 5 sacks in 7 games. But against Michigan, against Notre Dame, against Penn State, he was getting pressured. But then even when he had opportunities where he wasn't necessarily pressured, he didn't make some throws. And so there's, kind of being more consistent with that, making the right throws. Even against Minnesota, he missed a couple of throws. One of them was a touchdown pass to Chimere Dike that should have been there, that was underthrown and on the inside. So there are, and the big thing too, like obviously we always have the screens and go back on replay, right? Where, oh, you should make this throw. We overanalyze them most times because there's going to be quarterbacks, throws that every quarterback's going to want to make up later. They're going to see it like, gosh, I should have had that. But, I guess with how highly touted Mertz was, and that All-American Bowl game back in 2019, where he lit the world on fire there as a high school recruit, throwing for 5 touchdown passes in that high school all-star game, expectations are high. So, to I've kind of rambled, so I apologize, but it's also, there's a lot of nuance to it, but I think, there is this point where what this passing attack could have been and the expectations heading into this year. But I still think the potential is there. It's now just them coming together, and they're going to miss Ferguson, Davis, Pryor in 2022. So who steps up there is going to be a big question mark. And but again, I still think he has the tools to make it happen. It'll be interesting to see what he can do against Arizona State to end the year and see if he ends up on a high note.
So let's move on to the Wisconsin defense. And for any ASU fan that did some light research on that side of the ball for the Badgers, I wouldn't blame them if they stopped after these two stats I'm about to mention, averaging over 16 points a game and 65 yards rushing. I wouldn't, like I said, blame anybody if they just stop the research right there to know everything that they need to know about this Wisconsin defense. But Jake, when you go to your own personal expectations in the preseason, has Wisconsin really just played up to your expectations when it comes to their defense, or have they been maybe somewhat of a surprise, as dominant as they've been this 2021 season?
Right. I mean, statistically speaking, I was just scrolling through that while you're talking and just making sure I had my notes right, especially with bowl games. But I mean, they're number one in the defense, in the nation in total defense, about 241 yards per contest. They're a top 3 team in third down percentage defense, under 27%. And I know Arizona State has 44% of their third downs they convert to move the chains there. So that's going to be a key for this contest. You're looking at, everything with this team, the rushing, obviously the rushing defense is what a lot of people hone in on. And we know even without 2 running backs that were, the main running backs for Arizona State, Arizona State averaged, over 200 yards per contest there, and Wisconsin 65.2. So it's their MO is always to constrict the run and make teams beat them by pass. And back to your expectations, this is a team that I remember talking to Scott Nelson, the 5th-year safety. I'm like, well, you've been on, he's a 5th-year senior, you've been on other defenses for this team. Where do you see, how special could this team be, or this defense be? And he said, very special. And I feel like the defense has been that way. I don't think it's just, I wrote about it before the Nebraska and Minnesota games where, they give up some plays in those 2 contests, but statistically speaking, they are they were up among one of the best in Jim Leonard's tenure before the Nebraska and Minnesota games in terms of points per game, rushing yards per game, team passing efficiency defense, et cetera, et cetera. You go run third down conversion defense, just among the best. Pressures for that matter. They've, with the number of sacks, I will say, I think the one area where I thought maybe they have a little bit more more statistics or whatnot would be the pressures in terms of getting back to the quarterback. They have, if I'm not mistaken, over 30 or so sacks right now. But they have the talent to do it with Leo Chanel and Jack Sanborn coming from the inside for A or B gaps. But you also on the edge, you have Nick Herbig, who should be an NFL prospect coming off the edge. He's the brother of the Philadelphia Eagles offensive lineman there. But they do such a good job, 33 sacks overall in the season in 12 games. So it is a program that really, it's been a good defense. There have been the big plays that have given up, like I mentioned before, with Penn State. They give up some plays and through the air against Notre Dame. Most big thing was Michigan. Nebraska, that was just they've always had trouble against Nebraska. Even back in 2019 when they won in Lincoln, that Adrian Martinez had a really good game on the ground and through the air. If it wasn't for sack yardage, Martinez would have had a 100-yard day on the ground. Just to show you, along with Dedrick Mills, who I think put up over 100 yards too that game. So it's this defense can give up some plays through the air, and whether they do such a good job with their 111th and their responsibilities, they have their rules and their keys, but teams are starting to, teams can make big plays is when they break those rules, or they bend, they stress those rules, or a double move or whatnot, where, or et cetera, where that's where they can beat that defense. And the secondary is good, but they have given up some plays, and it goes up to those rules and keys, and it will be interesting to see just what Wisconsin, does against, Arizona State and James Daniels, who once again, dual threat quarterback. We'll see if they'll see what happens, if it's going to be similar to what you saw against Adrian Martinez and the Huskers a few weeks ago. But I do like this defense and just what Jim Leonard has done, even since the advent of the 3-4 defense coming to Wisconsin with Gary Anderson and Dave Aranda. And then it continued with Chris, where he kept the 3-4 and kept Aranda for 1 year. Then Cal coach Justin Wilcox kept it. And then Jim Leonard's kept it and taken, in my eyes, they've taken it to a new level here for consistency and precedent for Wisconsin.
So last question, Jake. In terms of the keys for the game, I know, again, overstating the obvious, using a football cliche, stop the run, being able to run the ball. I just feel that that's something Wisconsin right now, especially with the personnel challenges that ASU has, is probably going to be able to do better in that department than the Sun Devils. Curious, from your vantage point, what you know about Wisconsin, the research you've done about Arizona State preparing for this bowl game. Do you also feel that Wisconsin has the edge in that department? And consequently, what do you see the final score being in the Las Vegas Bowl?
Right. And it's always hard during this bowl season to make bowl predictions, right? Like you're trying to okay, who's in, who's out, or even who's injured, or, like who's not going to be able to play or suit up. And so, I do think Wisconsin's going to have a chance to run the ball. I remember writing about it when Wisconsin and Arizona State first was announced, because you and I talked about it on our cast, where Arizona State has given up some bigger games to those teams that have more competent running attacks, more potent running attacks. And I think Wisconsin, you're up there, top 15, top 20 in the nation in that, along with Allen, who is healthier now this season after the wear and tear on, during his first season. He's, feeling a lot better and whatnot. So he could be a big factor in this game. I do feel Wisconsin's offensive line, especially with those that are, there are players that experienced line for Wisconsin for the most part. And I do feel that they'll have an opportunity to run the ball either down the throats or, Wisconsin, they haven't necessarily used it a lot, but jet sweeps, trying to keep the defenders honest. So just trying to crunch down, those jet sweeps can help a lot. I do feel with Wisconsin too, for keys on the defensive side of the ball, it'll be containing Jaden Daniels. And again, it goes back to the Adrian Martinez type concept of, Daniels is now the leading rusher for the Sun Devils, who's going to be able to play. How will they go and, essentially just, can they contain him and not allow extended, plays that get broken down, and then all of a sudden there's a broken play down the field and it's a big, it's a touchdown. Can Wisconsin keep to their rules? And also for that, if there's some trickeration, can Wisconsin defenders just keep on their man, keep on their assignment? So those are some keys there. But obviously with Wisconsin, their MO too, to stop the run and make opposing quarterbacks throw and beat them. And that's been the key to success for a lot of it. And then I do feel that, their secondary is good enough to hold up this game. But, even I'll go back to the offense from one last thing. They're going to have to throw the ball. Like there's going to have to be some complementary football with Wisconsin. It's cliche too, but you have to have some passing game to help alleviate either moving the chains at first, even passing on first down, a rollout, etc. A quick, even a 5-yard run, 5-yard pass to a fullback, right? Where then you open up 2nd and 5, and then you can get the ball growing that way, 3rd and short type opportunities. That's going to help, because Wisconsin struggled on 3rd downs. And that's going to be another key for, it is cliche for all football, but 3rd downs on both sides of the ball, where you have, Wisconsin's been, I'm looking up this, I don't know off the top of my head right now, but I'm looking right now. I think they are, 33.1% on 3rd downs. Not good. And you look at they've done a great job on defense, but for Wisconsin, they're going to have to contain Arizona State and not let them move the chains, because Arizona State's converting nearly, 44% of the time on that down too. So there's a lot with that. And I guess I know I've said that was like my last key, but my absolute last one is turnovers, because it's the way, we know how turnovers go during a 7-game winning streak. Wisconsin was just interceptions, fumble recovery, special teams, making plays, and just helping spurt the offense and containing, there's a drive, just Northwestern, like the first drive, they're going down the field, and Northwestern's offense isn't great, but they are doing some things. And then, Caesar Williams comes up with an interception to halt the drive. And so there are game-changing plays that, even I think it was Purdue, they had 5, if I'm not mistaken, turnovers. They had a spurt at one point, I think in 4 games, where they had 16 takeaways. And so if Wisconsin can continue that while also limiting their mistakes, that'll end up huge. And obviously that's a game of football too, otherwise, but those are kind of my keys for Wisconsin. And, going out with 9 wins, I think 9, it's not the year that they wanted, but they could end it on a good note and send out the seniors on the right note.
Okay. And do you have a score prediction?
Oh, sorry. That's right. Score prediction. I think Wisconsin like 24-14 right now. I do feel, I mean, like I said, if there's mistakes abound, if they can't get that run game going, it's going to be a long day, or long evening, I should say. It's already going to be a long evening for me. Let's be honest. Like us sports writers, everyone, people, Wisconsin fans complain about, oh, it's another 11 a.m. kickoff. All of us are like, we get to see our families at night tonight, before the kids go to bed. I can actually say good night to them when I get home at 7 o'clock from doing all the coverage at Badger Blitz. But, really, I feel that Wisconsin, I think they come away with a win. I think they correct their wrongs. I think the team is tight right now. And just, we said some of the departures on the Arizona State side with their personnel. I think Wisconsin has a chance to run the ball more. And I think they'll be able to contain the running game enough. And based off of what you told me about Jaden Daniels, it'll be something, I think they'll be able to take care of the inconsistencies and come away with a W.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for that excellent insight. And I would encourage Sun Devil fans to check out BadgerBlitz.com. There's going to be a lot of preview content leading up to the SRS Distribution Bowl in Las Vegas on December 30th. And obviously, I would also extend invitation for the Sun Devil fans watching this video to check out all of our coverage pre-bowl and also in Las Vegas and post-game at DevilsDigest.com. Jake, wanted to wish you and your family Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season, and also to the Sun Devil fans watching this video, and the Wisconsin fans for that matter too. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a prosperous 2022 year. Jake, again, thank you so much for this great insight, and we will talk later.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Hode, for having me on. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to y'all, and Happy Holidays, and enjoy the game. I won't be down there in Vegas, but please enjoy the nice warm weather because it is cold. There's no snow on here, so I can't enjoy building a snowman right now. So y'all take care. Be well.
Thanks again, Jake.
Thank you.